The third indispensable element in building the new prosperity is closely related to creating new jobs and halting inflation. We must protect the position of the American dollar as a pillar of monetary stability around the world. In the past 7 years, there's been an average of one international monetary crisis every year. Now, who gains from these crises? Not the working man, not the investor, not the real producers of wealth. The gainers are the international money speculators. Because they thrive on crises, they help to create them. In recent weeks, the speculators have been waging an all-out war on the American dollar.
And what he said then in 1971, I believe it was before that. Was it 71? It could have been 71. Oh, because they suspended the gold standard. So when he's saying that the speculators are waging an all-out war against the dollar, he's false. He's lying. He's spreading government propaganda and misinformation, and it's spread throughout mainstream media back then, which was the dominant news source along with the newspapers, right? It wasn't the speculators waging an all-out war on the dollar. It was the dollar being massively devalued by him and the government taking the world off the gold standard when they backed the U.S. dollar, when they used the U.S. dollar instead of gold, and then here the massive inflation that they were printing and the guns and butter economy of the 70s and the 60s, right? And the war in Vietnam and the massive military spending that was going on in the 60s and misallocation of capital by the government is what caused the dollar to crash. When the governments spend more money than they take in taxes and are racking up debt and creating capital out of thin air by the Federal Reserve, and then when the Federal Reserve monetizes debt, that's inflation, and that devalues the dollar, and that's what caused the dollar to devalue, was the government, not the speculators. The speculators were just getting on the right side of the market because they could see the government devaluing their own currency, in this case the dollar, the world's reserve currency. And since he's about to say what he's going to say next, with all the lying he's doing and using that as the reason that he's taking the world off the gold standard, and he's doing it all based on propaganda, misinformation, and lies. He's not telling the truth. The reason our currency is crashing right now in that year, and right now it's currently rising, but it's crashing overall, is because the government was printing massive amounts of inflation, right? And manipulating interest rates. It wasn't because the speculators, it's because the government, but the government always uses propaganda and dumbing down of America to misrepresent what's going on and what's causing the problem of the dollar going down and inflation going up, which was the problem then. It's the government. It's not businesses. It's not speculators. It's not people in the stock market. It's him, Richard Nixon. It's Bill Clinton. It's Donald Trump. It's Barack Obama. It's George Bush. It's Herbert Hoover, right? Ronald Reagan, for all the good shit they did, he still massively expanded government. It's the Congress, Nancy Pelosi, right? Dianne Feinstein, Bernie Sanders. It's all these people. Governor Hitler in Michigan. It's the people in government that massively spend money out of their budget that they don't have. They're the ones devaluing the dollar.
The strength of a nation's currency is based on the strength of that nation's economy. And the American economy is by far the strongest in the world.
And he was lying there. It was not, or they wouldn't be having that problem. If you had a strong nation, back then we were still exporting things, but it was starting to go the other way.
Accordingly, I have directed the Secretary of the Treasury to take the action necessary to defend the dollar against the speculators.
If he was really going to defend the dollar, what he would have said is, we're going to rein in federal spending in the federal government, and we're going to downsize it to an appropriate level that it becomes an asset for the United States people and not a massive liability, right? Because the bigger the federal government gets, the bigger the federal budget gets, the more in debt the United States citizen and the country gets, therefore the dollar collapses, right? But he's not saying that because he's part of the federal government, and governments are only in there for their own interests because they're criminal gangsters, and they've infiltrated the United States government. And here's one of them. I'm exposing a criminal gangster. Yes, that's right. You're hearing this first. A member of the criminal gangster cartel, Richard Nixon, who infiltrated the presidency back then, which had been infiltrated many of times prior. Like I say, they've infiltrated the Federal Reserve, the United States government, in order to manipulate the markets, right? And they have. And this is a guy right here, a criminal gangster that's infiltrated the presidency. And from this second that he said, I'm temporarily taking the United States convertibility of the dollar to gold to the dollar, it wasn't temporary, it's permanent. There's nothing more permanent than a temporary government program. And from the minute he said this, this criminal gangster put a nail in the coffin to the prosperity and to the higher, the increasing, and to the normal American middle class standard of living rising, and people coming from poverty to middle class. From the second he does what I'm going to play next, he put an immediate end to that, and it was over, and we had nothing but skyrocketing debt, the American dollar being worth less and less, because if you look what the American dollar was worth in 1971 to what it's worth now, it's pathetic, right? And this is a criminal gangster that I'm exposing.
I have directed Secretary Connally to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold or other reserve assets, except in amounts and conditions determined to be in the interest of monetary stability and in the best interest of the United States.
And what they did a few years before that is they made it illegal for the United States citizen to hold gold bullion or coins. And they said, you got to turn it all in and we'll give you $25 an ounce. And the idiots in the country that turned it into these morons, because they thought it was the right thing to do to help the country, was false. It was the wrong thing to do. The government gave you $25 an ounce, right? At a fixed rate because it was manipulated. They fixed it. And what they do after they rounded up all the gold that they could get from the American citizen, they massively devalued the $25 an ounce they just gave them, because they raised gold up to $35 an hour the next day after they got all the gold, which means they had nearly a 50% reduction in the value of their purchasing power after they turned in their gold for dollars, because this guy's a criminal gangster, and that's what he was trying to do, make the American populace more poor, right, and let the government go even more out of control and not have the constraints and the restrictions of gold to stop the massive unprecedented spending of the future that was going to happen based off what this criminal gangster just did. Enjoy the next episode of Vincenzo's Gold Crypto Investing. We're going to go over the XRP, the Bitcoin, and the XLM real quick. Peace and love. Peace. Vincenzo's Gold Crypto Investing, where you like, subscribe, and share for a one-of-a-kind company-made computer software trading probability-based trading alert, technical analysis, and company philosophy, as I'm your most trusted source for blockchain technology and cryptocurrency breaking news and coin updates here on YouTube and in the cryptocurrency sphere, as that's right, old Vincenzo has brought back truth and, most importantly, integrity back to the trading market. I hope you enjoyed the previous 8 minutes of exposing a criminal gangster cartel member, a henchman that made it all the way to the presidency. And it's very important that you understand what he did back in 1971, right? And all the things leading up to that, and the lies and propaganda that he used in order to justify bankrupting the future decade and century of the United States populace and taking us from the most prosperous nation in the country and the world to the poorest in the world, right? And you can see right now Bitcoin's got this kind of double bottom going, and if you're looking to get bullish, you need to get up into here, right? You need to get back on top of this white support zone, hold it as support, and then get back up on top of this blue ring at 37,224 to get bullish, right? And the 200 would slide down like that, because this top part of this white support zone is the major volume traded, and the deeper you get into that, the more bearish it gets. And you could be looking at this saying you're forming a bearish continuation pattern down here, right? If the double bottom fails, and then on a breakdown, that would get you right down to the next level of 32,963 and 37 cents. So that's what we're watching in Bitcoin. Dogecoin, you can see it's struggling. Again, it did that classic hook-nosed Jew bearish reversal pattern the other day. We called that pump, said it would sell off. It did. Right now, if you break this key level down here, we're going to mark this with an industry exclusive horizontal ray. If you hit this level right here and can't hold that, that's going to initiate a fall all the way down here to your next support level at 10 cents in this falling channel that you're in. And nobody cares about Ethereum, XRP. Right now, if you're trying to get bullish in XRP, like I was saying, what you got to do is you're on the bottom side of this. Let's zoom in here to the hour time frame. You're on the bottom side of this green ring. What we got going on here? See this green ring that we've been on, the green fib circle? You got below it, rejected, nipped above it, immediately sold off and hit it again and got rejected. That's acting as bearishness when you see that. If you're trying to get bullish, you got to get some volume, a little volume pump, right? And then when you come back on top of this 61,948, you hold it as support and kick up and try to make a run and build a little bit of a base into the 68 cents. That's what you got to do to get bullish. You got to get a couple of good green candlesticks down here, back to back, right? It shoots the price up. You get on top of that 200 and most importantly, on top of that 61,948, start holding it as support and move up like that, right? If you come up like you did back here, right? You see this as you pumped up, but then you immediately shot right back through it and then hit it as resistance. That's bearish. So if you keep doing this and you nibble up and keep failing it and hitting it on the underside and nibbling up, hitting it on the underside, that's telling you it's bearish, right? But if you reverse that and come up, hold it, nibble a little bit below, come back up, hold it, come back down, nibble it, that's telling you it's bearish or bullish because you're holding it more, right? You're not getting rejected. You're starting to hold it as support. Right now, that's bearish. This is all bearish right there. And you need this to be flipped the other way, right? So that's what we're watching out for, and that's what you need to be looking out for if you want this to get bullish and you're playing the long game, or if you're a long-term hodler or trying to swing trade it, or you bought in on the quick pump the other day, not understanding what was going on by the criminal gangsters and the market manipulators that I just showed you prior in this video, and you bought in on this pump, and then you immediately got forced down 21%, or not 21%, a quick 12% flush after the quick market manipulating pump. Those are what you need to look for if you're trying to get bullish. And then XLM is the same thing. You got down on this purple ring where the green dotted line is current price, the purple dotted line that's really close to it. It's kind of hard to see, but you can see it there. Just slightly below it is where we kept telling you were going to come down to. And we told you pre-Fed, look for the classic hook no Jew bearish reversal pattern where you pump up and then you come right back down on the 200-day like that, and it did it exactly in the 3-hour time frame what we thought it would do. See that classic hook nose Jew bearish reversal pattern, and then the 16 cents is your next level. If you're trying to get bullish, what you need to do is get a big volume candlestick, and then when you sell off, you start to hold the moving averages as support, and then you continue up, right? Right now, this is all bearish. Every time you get a little bit of a pump, you run into overhead resistance and sell off. Overhead resistance, sell off, resistance, sell off. That's bearish, but we're going to keep you on top of this. Peace and love. Peace and love.